Good morning and welcome to Zen Fits here in Blackstone, Virginia, the center of the world. You know, I love frogs. I don't love frogs, but I have a little Buddha pond in the backyard, and it's about 15 years old now, and the original koi are still in it. They're that big, and the pond's only that big. But I have a Buddha statue there. It was a Buddha pond. I was so excited. A friend of mine designed it and had two layers, like a little pond. The pond's about the size of bathtubs, bigger. And there was one in upper and a stream went from the upper one down to the lower one, and a pump here pumped the water up to the upper one. So you had a circular flow of water. And I had a little Buddha, big Buddha about that, a yard Buddha with a cup. And after the pond was built and after it got matured a little bit, a frog appeared, a big old bullfrog. There's no lakes around here. There's no water around here. Maybe, does it rain frogs? I don't know where this frog came from, but he was in that pond and he sat in the Buddha's cup. And he would just sit there, and I would come up my camera, click, 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 click. He posed. He didn't go plop. He stayed. And that's the title of my talk this morning. I was writing to, responding on Facebook. And when did I stop plopping? And have I? All right. Well, let me quote a poem, and then I'll quote a haiku. See if we can hook them together. The poem is from Beddoe. I got it in Albert Lowe's book, Creating Consciousness. A child full of life in the gloom cries with frog voice, "What shall I be?" A child full of life in the gloom. To kind of get into that a little bit. What is a child full? A child full of life. A child full of life in the gloom, in the darkness, in the gloom, in the fog, cries with frog voice, croak, croak, lonely. What shall I be? And now there's another haiku that I love by Beddoe. An old pond. Imagine an old pond, still, mature. It's got big koi in it. It's got vegetation around it. It reflects the water. It's still. An old pond. A frog leaps. Plop. Plop. Not the word plop, but plop. You hear it. You hear that plop. An old pond. A frog leaps. Plop. Can you hear the plop? Can you hear that plop when the frog leaps? Can you separate yourself from the hearing and the heard? When the plop comes, are you not that plop? Can you divide yourself in sound, the heard, and can you, visually you can. Visually you can say, well, I'm looking at you and you're, well, looking at myself, but everything you perceive is over there and you're here. There's a gap, there's a division. But when you hear, when you listen, when you really hear, is there a gap? Are you not the sound? Are you not the sound? The plop, you see? So this is the shift. There's a shift here. From the visual, from things over there, a pond, a frog, and me here. That's three things. That's the visual hologram. That's the spread out of space-time. Things. There's a thing over there. There's a thing over, lots of things around here. I'm a thing. That thing moves, makes a noise, and the sound travels across the airwaves up to me, and I hear the plop. The frog causes the hearing. That's the way we see the world. But in sound, there is no separation. There is no cause and effect. There's just the sound, you see. That's why we love music. When you really listen to music, you are the music. The music is you. There's no I'm here and the music is there. Of course, that's mostly the way we do. But when we really hear the music, it's plop, you see. So this is the what I'm getting into here is kind of like part of my life story. The child full of life in the gloom cries with frog voice, what shall I be? So everywhere you are is a pond. I live in Blackstone. That's the pond. I stayed here. Before 1986, I was plopping horizontally. I would plop here. I spent my whole life plopping, looking for a pond. I spent my whole life jumping from one pond to another. Every 2 years, where am I going to plop next? I was immobile. I was a gypsy. I grew up this way. My father was in the military. We went across, we followed him. He's over at this port. Now he's at that port. It's during the war. Back and forth across the country, before I left home, I'd been across the country 11 times. But anyway, always moving, always plopping. And finally, I tried to plop out of Blackstone for years when I came here. But finally, I decided something shifted, and I decided to stay in Blackstone, to stay in this pond. I became a photographer. I was a big frog. I liked that because I was the only frog in the pond. You go to a big pond, big city, there are a lot of photographers, a lot of frogs. But here, I was the only frog, so I stayed here. Anyway, but the point is, I stopped plopping horizontally. Here I will stay forever. But I didn't stop plopping. No. I didn't stop plopping. The child full of life in the gloom kept croaking. What shall I be? But now I'm not looking horizontally in the world. Oh, I'll be better in Florida. I'll be there. Plop, plop, plop. I'm somewhere over the rainbow. Plop, plop, plop. Where's the gold, the treasure? It's over there horizontally. I stopped jumping horizontally. But I didn't stop plopping. I didn't stop jumping. But now my jumping was vertical. Now my jumping became vertical. And I would jump from teaching to teaching, from teacher to teacher, from viewpoint to viewpoint. But vertically. Not jumping in. Now, say, you got to get the point here, right? Horizontal, vertical. We think they're different. Or but when they become one, you stay in the same place and you stop jumping, but the horizontal, this is the crossroads, this is the plop. The plop is when the horizontal and the vertical are different, but they're one. The sound, plop, the frog, and the frog jumps and I hear, that's different. But in the plop, there are one. In the plop, there's no division. So you can't, the plop is a sound. So you can't see it. You can't catch it. It's gone. Plop, it's gone. Where did the plop go? Well, it's in my memory now. I heard that plop. I heard the plop, you see. And now I'm going to go find the plop in the future. But that's the wrong place. The plop, the old pond, and I'm plopping here. I'm plopping, plop, plop. The plopping becomes when you realize that there is no new pond out there that is better than the one you're in. There is no world out there better than the one you're in. There's no pond out there better than your pond, which is yourself. There's no pond out there better than you. You stop plopping for it. But the frog voice doesn't still. The child full of life in the gloom, crying in frog voice, what shall I be, doesn't stop. But now the dive is vertical. You just keep going deeper into your pond. You keep going deeper into yourself. And you discover layers of yourself, like peeling back the onion. And you go plop, 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 downward, you see, not horizontally. When you come to a teaching or a belief, and you say, oh, this is it, I've arrived. It's the old pond. And you leap out, plop. And you come to another belief, another arrival, another, aha, I've got it. Another insight, aha, I've arrived, I'm awakened, I can stop jumping. The frog leaps, plop. So the pond, your little tiny pond, wherever Blackstone's a tiny, tiny pond in the world, you see. But it has infinite depth. There's no boundary to the pond when you go vertical. When you go vertical, there's no boundary to the pond. So instead of leaping out of the pond to bigger ponds, I'll go to California, I'll go to different religion, I'll go, yada, 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 yada. All that stops. And now you leap into deeper understanding. The pond is your understanding, and it expands. When you stop looking for understanding out there, you see, plop. An old pond. An old pond. Your old self, your old belief, your convictions, your certainty, your attainment. Ah, I've got respect now. I've got it right now. The old pond. The frog. The bodiless child full of life in the gloom, crying with frog voice, leaps, plop. But he doesn't land in a new pond. This is the haiku. This is the Zen koan. He doesn't land in a new pond, plop. Oh, now I'm in a bigger pond. I'm a bigger frog. You see, there is no bigger frog. There's no bigger pond in the plop. In the plop, there's just awakening. In the plop, there is just I am. In the plop, you are just I am, and there's what it stops. You don't say I am something. I'm this, I'm that. I got respect, I got no respect. I'm up, I'm down, I'm happy, I'm sad. All of these are ponds. Ponds of the mind, you see. Ponds of feelings, ponds of thoughts, ponds of choices, ponds of form, ponds of consciousness. Ah, ponds of consciousness that we think is a world. But still, the frog cries. The frog cries in the gloom, what shall I be? Which means you can't be the old pond. You gotta leap. You gotta jump. That's what frogs do. You gotta leap out of the old pond. You gotta leap out of your old self. But the leap is not horizontal. That's in form. I'll leap to a new frog and become, and this city is better. This place, this group of people, these friends, this relationship. It's all horizontal. That comes to an end when you realize that the pond is not out there, but it's within. So no matter where you leap horizontally, You're not it. That's not it. So anyway, as I ramble through this, plopping, 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 I come to the breakthrough cone in Zen, which is the pond I swim in right now, knowing that it's not the real pond, the complete pond. There's no arrival. It's just that Zen gives me the language and the frame for the frog leaping, you see. That haiku, an old pond, a frog leaps, plop. That's the haiku, but great haikus, like the ones by Beddoe, are Zen cones. There's a contradiction in there. There's a contradiction in that cone. An old pond, the frog leaps, plop, you see. That contradiction stirs your frog to leap out of itself. So the Zen cone that I love and work with is Jashu's moo. Now it's a little drama. I'm sure I've told it to you before. A monk comes to Jashu, a very famous sage in China. This is during the old golden age of Zen, 7 and 900 CE. And the monk has a question. He has a frog voice. He's crying in the gloom. He's a childful. He's a yearning. He wants to burst. But he's got this question. But he's in the gloom. The question is the gloom. Crying with frog voice. A child full of life in the gloom. The gloom is the question. The child full of life is the question. What shall I be, you see? So he goes to Jashu and he says, does a dog have Buddha nature? Does a dog have Buddha nature? Now to get this cone, you have to understand context. The context is, in Buddhism, one of the axioms or truths is that all beings have Buddha nature. All beings have Buddha nature. Or if you were Christians, that all beings are saved. All beings are images of God. All beings are Buddha nature. You don't question that. I mean, you can question it, but that's just the truth of Buddhism. So the monk knows that, and the master knows that. So when he asks, does a dog have Buddha nature? What's he really asking? He's the frog, crying in frog voice in the gloom, who am I? If a dog has Buddha nature and is at rest in himself, if a dog is happy, if a dog is at peace with himself, then why can't I be in peace, you see? Am I not? Of course, in Asia, the dog is the lowest animal. Don't be a dog, die like a dog. So if a dog is saved, if a dog has Buddha nature, if a dog is at home with himself in the world, why can't I be? This is the child full of life crying in the gloom. What shall I be? Croak, 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 you see. What shall I be? And Jashu says, moo. Jashu just pops out with it, moo. Now in Japanese, moo means no. Now is Jashu saying no? A dog doesn't have Buddha nature? Well, then he's denying the tradition. Does he say yes? A dog has Buddha? Well, then he's just answering an intellectual question. He's not answering the frog. He's not giving release to the frog. He's just answering a stupid question. Oh yeah, yeah. A dog has Buddha nature. Oh, what next? The monk goes, "Oh, I've waited 5 years to get to this man." The frog doesn't leap. So moo is the frog leaping. Moo is plop. The frog leaping and the plop is the same. You can't separate them. Frog leaps, plop, it's the same. The leaping of the mind in the gloom, stimulated by the question, what shall I be, does not land in a new pond. It's plop. You are the plop. Life is a plop. Life is moo. That's it. This is the great liberation. Plop. You are the plop. The plop is you. Anyway, thanks for joining me together on this adventure with the frog. May you leap out of your old pond. Plop. May you leap out of your old self. Plop. May you leap, from the gloom to awakening. Plop. Thanks for dropping in.